Yo, what is up, guys? It's Pedro here, and in today's video, I'll be talking about the Washington Commanders coaching staff practically being finalized. We'll be going over all the hires, and I'll give you guys my brief thoughts on each hire that the Washington Commanders made. And if you guys are new, make sure to subscribe, hit that like button, and that notification bell as well so you never miss a video. A little bit of a different setup today, running a little bit behind and wasn't able to fix my audio yet. So just on the phone for today, but after that, it'll be back on the computer as long as I can figure out that audio, the audio issue. So let's get into it. And there won't be visuals, unfortunately, but it is what it is. Dan Quinn is the head coach, not, that we all knew. Cliff Kingsbury as the OC. I'm just going down the list. Joe Witt is the defensive coordinator. And then you got Larry Izzo, who I think is one of the best hires they made, as a special teams coordinator. Then you got Bobby Johnson as O-line coach. Do not like that move. We're going to talk about that in a little bit. Tavita Pritchard, not sure how you pronounce it, but he's the quarterback's coach. I do like keeping him around. I think he has a potential to move up. Linebackers coach Ken Norton Jr., that was recently announced. And then you got defensive pass game coordinator. I think that's what DPGC stands for. Jason Simmons, who was with the Raiders. And you got pass rush specialist Ryan Kerrigan. And then you got SDA, which is, I think it's some defensive position for John Pagano, who is Chuck Pagano's brother. And then you got Brian Johnson, who I believe is going to have some offensive role, whether it's, pass game coordinator, something like that. And let's see. Yeah, so, Pagano still don't have the exact position that he's going to be coaching, but something on the defensive side of the ball. And overall, I think this is a very strong staff. And actually, one other one they hired, former Buccaneers assistant coach David Raya, R-A-I-H, Raya. I don't know how to pronounce that. He's going to be their tight ends coach. He was with Cliff Kingsbury in Arizona, so some familiarity there. And not really sure too much how to, what to make of that move, but I think it's solid to have someone that you worked with before. You just don't want to bring everyone back like Ron did from his days in Carolina. And then Ken Norton Jr. is their linebackers coach. He worked with Dan Quinn in Seattle as well. I do like this move, and most of the moves I do like. I wasn't a huge fan of the Dan Quinn hiring initially because I did want Ben Johnson, I wanted Mike McDonald and some other guys, but hey, we got Dan Quinn's our coach, so we got to, root for him. And I think, he's definitely not he wasn't an awful head coaching candidate. A lot of teams had him in their top three. So, I'm fine with that. And then he brings in Cliff Kingsbury, who I do like. Joe Witt, I'm really not sure what to make of him. I think that's more of a wait and see situation, but he worked with Dan Quinn in Dallas. He will be calling the plays. That is something to keep in mind. I was hoping Dan Quinn would call the plays. I really like when the head coach calls the plays, whether that's an offensive guy or a defensive guy. He's not going to call the plays, unfortunately, but I think, Joe Witt, we'll see how he does. He has familiarity with Dan Quinn, and he knows what he runs. So I think they're going to be on the same page, whereas Ron Rivera and Jack Del Rio, they were guys that, Ron was a defensive guy and so was Jack Del Rio. And Ron didn't really have a background with Jack Del Rio, and they kind of ran different defenses and they weren't on the same page. So Joe Witt will 100% be running what Dan Quinn wants, and Dan Quinn's probably going to have a lot of impact as well. And I'm just going to be going down the list and talking about each guy a little bit more than I did in the beginning. Larry Izzo, special teams coordinator, has been working with the Seahawks for the last few years. Their special teams have been really good. The advanced metrics, the normal stats as well, was a special teams stud. I think a 3-time Pro Bowler, won 3 rings with the Patriots under Bill Belichick. And I think he played linebacker, played a little bit of offense as well, but was mostly just a special teams stud. And he's translated that to a very good career as a coach. Was with the Giants, I believe, and then I think he went straight to the Seahawks. Might be another team in between there. I guess I can look it up for you guys right now. But I do really like that hire. I think that's probably my favorite hire of the... Oh, and he was a coordinator he was a special teams coordinator, I believe, for the Texans as well. That's probably my favorite hire, just because of the success he's had and he's played in this league before and at a high level as a special teams guy, and I think he'll be able to get his guys ready and give them insight that they wouldn't have normally from a special teams coach, because he's done it at a high level. He did for 10 plus years in this league and won Super Bowls doing it. So he has really good experience, and I think that's huge for special teams. That's really big for special teams. So I think that's probably my favorite hire that the Commanders made. Bobby Johnson, that's my least favorite hire. Going to the next one. And I know I said Larry's is my favorite hire like 4 times. I know someone's going to comment that, but it is what it is. Bobby Johnson, don't like that hire. Worked with the Bills. The Bills offensive line wasn't great. He left. They got better. That's what a lot of Bills fans say. I'm going to take their word on it. Same thing with the Giants. The Giants fans hated Bobby Johnson, and he's been in the league for 20 years, so I guess he's doing something right, but I'm not too excited about it. The Giants weren't able to develop Evan Neal. Andrew Thomas, was kind of already developed before Bobby Johnson got there. And I don't know. I don't really love this hire, and it's a very, very important position, and you're going to want to bring in a lot of young talent, and if he can't develop that, it's not good. And yeah, it might be different here in Washington, but he also had John Michael Schmitz, I think, out of Wisconsin or Minnesota, one of the 2 schools, drafted in the 2nd round, wasn't able to develop him that well. And it's, only 1 season, and it's not always on the coaches. Sometimes it's on the players, sometimes it's on both. But I don't know. Not too happy about this hire. He just could have went another direction. We'll see what happens there. Hopefully they have a good assistant that can help in that room too to develop. And in case it doesn't go well with Bobby Johnson, you can bring in another guy. Tavita Pritchard, talked about it earlier, like the move. I think he has potential to move up the ranks, potentially get an OC job eventually. And, he's the only one, I guess, that is staying besides Kerrigan, but Kerrigan was like an assistant too. So Ken Norton Jr., don't know a ton about him, except for he worked with Dan Quinn in Seattle. So I think this is a solid move. Jason Simmons, a few different teams wanted him, the Raiders, and I can't remember who else, but he's going to be a good guy on the defensive side of the ball to have. And then Ryan Kerrigan, talked about it in yesterday's video if you want to go check that out. Love having Kerrigan in this room, in this locker room, because not only are you keeping one of your own, but he also has a lot of good experience and has been in a lot of situations. So he might not be amazing with the X's and O's and the scheming up and stuff, but he can help these guys prepare, teach them how to, take care of their body, what they need to do on game days, what works best for these specific players. And I think that is invaluable to have. John Pagano liked the move. A lot of teams wanted him. And some background information about him was the Broncos outside linebackers coach from 2020 to 2021. Chargers and Raiders defensive coordinator, has 20 plus years of NFL experience. And yeah, I think it's a solid hire for sure. And then Brian Johnson, I like the hire. I think as a quarterbacks coach, he's good. Helped develop Dak Prescott at Mississippi State, Kyle Trask at Florida, and then Jalen Hurts in Philly. And, just because someone's not a good coordinator doesn't mean they're not going to be a good quarterbacks coach. Or just because someone wasn't a good head coach like Cliff Kingsbury doesn't mean they're not going to be a good coordinator. They can't be a good coordinator. So that's kind of my thought in this whole situation. So for the most part, I like the staff with the exception of Bobby Johnson. A bunch of the other guys you really aren't going to know, especially with the position coaches and, especially with some of those position coaches. But, for the most part, I like the staff, and I really, really like the coordinators, honestly. Cliff, Larry, and then Joe Witt. Maybe a little bit of wild card there, but I think he'll be good as well. So that's it for today's video. Hope you guys did enjoy. If you did, hit that like button, subscribe if you guys are new, and peace.